From Deloitte Tax, welcome to the Tax News and Views podcast. In this series, we talk to specialists from Deloitte about the latest business developments. I'm Carrie Falkenhayn, your host for Tax News and Views. Many organizations are looking at transforming their finance function. And so for today's topic, we're going to dive into ERP implementations and how they can present tax departments with an opportunity to drive value for their organization, as well as improve current systems and processes. Specifically, we're going to discuss how a typical ERP program is run, what the latest approaches are to implementations, and what organizations need to know to effectively incorporate tax deliverables throughout their transformation journey. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues from Deloitte's Tax Technology Consulting Group, Paik and Jim Sullivan. June and Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yes, thank you, Carrie. Pleasure to be here.
So June, I'll start with you. Where does tax fit in as part of a digital transformation?
So what we often see is that tax touches every part of the organizations, and especially when our global clients have complex footprint in terms of the types of work that they do and types of structures that they have across different business functions, it can create a lot of complexities to work through, and tax is definitely part of that. And tax integrates with your sales process, your procurement, IT, and finance, and there are touch points to consider each step of the way to make sure that the organization as a whole can function smoothly. And data and technology is another point that tax should be considered for in terms of integration. Tax is the biggest consumer of financial data, and there are tax requirements to be considered when you're setting up master data in the ERP system, as well as when you're putting together transaction data on each transaction to make sure that there's no tax impact down the road that was not foreseen. And in terms of technology, there are a lot of different tax technology platforms that our clients often utilize. And to make sure that there is a support from the infrastructure and technology perspectives to make sure that the processes run smoothly, there should be integration points that are considered to make sure that the tax technology platforms are built into the ERP and the source systems in an optimal manner. And when you look at your workforce engagement, the trend that we see is the shift from task and compliance driven activities to driving strategic foresight into the future. And that delta can be earned and gained by achieving efficiencies from digital transformation to reduce manual work. And of course, there's the risk framework that impacts the whole organization. The trend that we see there is that tax authorities are driving digital environment by requiring real-time reporting and data transfer. And to meet with that changing pace of the tax authorities, our clients are often making sure that they're updating their systems, increasing control, and gaining centralized visibility over the entirety of the tax relevant data in an organization. And without that technology enablement, it becomes more and more difficult to keep up with what the tax authorities are requiring in many of the global jurisdictions. And last but not least, tax integration also supports business partnering with customers and vendor by reducing tax errors and by making sure that you are optimizing the efficiencies in the process. You are really helping build the relationships with the customers and vendors in the longer run to make sure that you're supporting the organization's success as a whole.
That sounds like something organizations would be very interested in. What are some of the specific areas where tax can be involved?
So a lot of the considerations and the methodologies that our clients often consider is that the shift And the trend going from waterfall to agile transformation or hybrid agile can really help companies take advantage of the quick wins earlier on instead of having to wait for a multi-year deployment to go live. So when you stage your implementations in a way that you strategically place the quick wins with high impact in the beginning of the project and have that released before other sprint cycles, then it can really help a company maximize the benefits and really accelerate getting the business case out of the project.
Got it. Jim, anything you would add there?
I think the one thing that I would add, and June is absolutely correct, is that when you think of these activities, a digital transformation basically is the movement of a company from what they do today, which is usually manual paper communication between colleagues, probably a report or two out of a computer system, maybe some file transfers onto a shared drive that might or might not be organized. All of that process is looking to be upgraded and streamlined. And so you're talking about change on a massive scale. And when a department like tax is so dependent on information, especially detailed information from the rest of the company, in order for them to keep the company tax compliant, then you're talking that the tax group has to be a part of this transformation, understand the change, be part of the change.
So what, maybe just to continue, what are some of the activities that are required in this journey? Like, where do you start?
Yeah, so some of the activities are actually pretty straightforward, but often forgotten. The first activity is really understanding the process that you're performing. And let me just give an example here. Understanding how to calculate a particular deduction on your 1120 is not the same thing as understanding the process, in which takes you into understanding the information that you're going to use in that analysis of that deduction. So for example, meals and entertainment. Information for meals and entertainment expenses are going to come from a variety of places, usually not just one system that neatly has it all categorized and labeled for someone to evaluate. You're going to get that information from a variety of ways and in a variety of formats. You're going to need to then understand, what do I do with this information? What are the key fields of data that I need to look at and then make a decision upon in order to determine what's the deductibility of this particular expense? Now, you might say, well, that's easy. I just look at this and I make a decision. Well, that's true because you're a trained professional. You're a human being and you have a mind that can comprehend this. It's not going to translate easily into a technology system. And when you're talking about a digital transformation where you're changing the computer systems and you're changing the processes, you really have to break down what a human does into very basic building blocks. And that's really the first and most important thing for any organization to do, is understand the process in the smaller components.
And you really need to have tax expertise to be able to do that effectively.
Yeah, you need to have tax expertise, absolutely. But you also need to understand the business. What drove, as an example, those expenses? Why were they created? How are they recorded for other parts of the business, right? Accounting, maybe perhaps human resources or talent department, reimbursement through the AP group and so forth. All of those things are very important to understand because they affect the data that you're getting and how you need to analyze it and then use it as a tax professional.
So we hear talk about technology roadmaps. So what are the activities organizations should focus on to start a tax technology roadmap?
Yeah, the first thing for a tax technology or roadmap is really understanding your objectives. For your company, certain taxation types and certain activities that you perform within those taxation types. So whether direct tax or transactional taxes or and so forth, Those are important. What's really important to you? What's going to drive value for your organization? Yes, you have to be compliant across all tax types. However, some tax types, for example, in one industry, are going to be much more meaningful to your financials than another. And so understand that. 2, make sure that you dive deeply into not just the data you're receiving, but how that data came to be. Who provided that data? What occurred to that data? In simple terms, if you look back at if you're looking for just one sort of abbreviation to follow, SIPOC, SIPOC. Who supplied the information? What did they supply? What was done to it once they supplied it? Who needs to receive it? And what do they need to receive? SIPOC.
So interesting information, Jim. And maybe you and June can both share on what are some of the leading practices to prepare for a digital transformation.
Thank you, Carrie. June and I have discussed this quite a bit. And one thing that we have both arrived at in seeing is it is wonderful to see how all of the different clients we've been able to help have taken on an individualistic approach to the transformation. The core of it is they all break down information and understand their business processes, as we discussed a little bit earlier. But the uniqueness is, in June, I think that you've seen this as well, the uniqueness is they find a way to do that matters most to them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Jim. A lot of our clients are at different juncture points in their journey to digital transformation across the organization beyond tax. And based on where they are in their journey, their approach may look very different. And also, our clients have different footprints in global tax jurisdictions. And depending on their tax positions and where their priority lies in terms of the geography, that may also shift towards different approaches when clients are considering digital transformation.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, thank you, June and Jim, so much for providing this information. It's really clear that the right engagement from a tax department in an ERP implementation can really set the course for that department's effectiveness and efficiency for the long term. So great. Thank you so much for sharing. If people would like more information, go to Deloitte.com and search tax technology consulting, and you'll see a variety of resources. You can also connect with June and Jim directly via LinkedIn, and we hope you tune in here for future podcast editions. In the meantime, thank you all for joining in and listening. Continue to be well, everyone.